All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for hopping in tonight on a Friday night here. And I am considerably less aggravated than I was this time last week. That's because if you look outside, there is no more snow. And I almost said the F word, but I'm really trying to watch my language. And for the sake of you guys watching with maybe your kids in the background, I'm going to try really hard not to drop at least any F bombs. Uh, yeah, that darn stuff is gone. Thank goodness. There's still a few spots where you can see the aftermath where the plows came through and piled it up, and it's descending down. But we've been above freezing for 3 or 4 days now, so it was downright mild and warm today. I think we got close to 60. We had some sun, so I was happy about it. Uh, my mood is really weather dependent. Seasonal affective disorder, I think that's a real thing. So any reprieve that we can have from dreary 8 inches of trudging through just the most snow I've seen in over 20 years. We'll put it that way. So I'll get you guys caught up on what that means for us coming out of that particular aggravation. I don't think I got a whole bunch of housekeeping stuff this time around. If you do want to go ahead and throw it on your radar, we will be planning our next gathering here on the farm in West Knox County, March 3rd. That's a Sunday. We'll do it from about noon to 5. We will have a little bit of an agenda this time that'll get posted and it'll go out on the mailing list. So if you want to get on the mailing list, check in with me, strongrootsresources@gmail.com. Sometimes on certain browsers, the pop-up form to put in your email won't come up. So if you don't see it when you go on the website, just holler at me and I'll get you on there. But we're gonna have our gathering on March 3rd. I'm gonna break it up a little bit. So there's gonna be a portion where we have a little bit of a tour and a description of our systems here. Then we will kind of have a designated time for networking, and then I'll probably have some kind of very short presentation. So I'm just going to get it a little more dialed in because at this point we're getting enough people out here where if some folks come in, later and I'm kind of like repeating myself, and I don't necessarily mind, but then that takes me away from other conversations. So I just want to try to get it a little more, just a little bit more organized, but nothing crazy because that's just not how I roll. So that's what I got at the moment. I am starting to pull stuff together for the Living Free in Tennessee workshop, the Kentucky Sustainable Living Weekend, Self-Reliance Festival in April. So you guys will hear more about that as we go along. But just have that on your radar. So this weather, I know everybody says this. It's East Tennessee. Wait 5 minutes. The weather will change. Sometimes we have to wait a few days, but here we are. We had last week below freezing the entire time, and in some cases, single, almost negative digits. 8 inches of snow, an ice storm in the middle of it. How did they do it in Ghostbusters? Cats and dogs living together, mass chaos. All just, we weren't ready for it. I should say, I'm not saying we up here, my place, we were ready for it. Other people weren't. And as I talked about last week, there was a whole lot of fussing and such going on the local neighborhood forums because people just couldn't believe that they couldn't get out of their driveway. So what I observed as we kind of got towards the end of all that and it started getting a little bit warmer is people got out there with their shovels and their rakes and whatever they could find and decided to fix their own stuff. So there's that. I mean, there were still plenty of, people looking to hire folks, which is fine. I get hired to do stuff. I like making money. That's cool. But I actually saw cases of people coming together, communities, neighbors, possibly folks that hadn't even really talked to each other before, working on clearing off driveways, working on moving vehicles, pulling vehicles out of ditches. Just, it's like they had the moment of, oh, there might not be anybody coming to bail me out of this. So I guess I'll try to figure it out. So I hope that was like a positive thing in a learning curve, and encouraging for people, that reminded them that if we, as neighbors, we can actually help each other out. Like this whole each man is an island is BS. That's not how the world works. It's not how building community works. So I was just happy to see that it took about a week, and then people were finally like, oh, I guess I'm going to have to do something about this. And I was happy to see that when it was happening, that they were looking out for folks who had mobility issues, or folks who were elderly, or things like that. So that was a relief. I had checked in with my people, and these are people that are living, my neighbors, the ones who I'm in contact with, and we were all in the same boat. We had our stuff together, and we didn't need to go anywhere. And if we really wanted anything, it was just because we wanted it, not because we needed it. So we were good to go. And we were also all in the same camp of, we didn't really want to get out on icy, messy roads and potentially wind up in a case of paying an insurance deductible if we didn't absolutely need to. So while it was mostly just an inconvenience, we got through it. So my biggest issue was just not being able to do a whole lot. I don't do well sitting around. And of course, I was finding myself sitting around on the couch, bored, not because I had nothing to do, but because everything I thought I could do, I would start to do. And then I would discover that, like, for instance, I've got these boots that are coming apart and they need to be sewn back together. And I looked at, and it's coming loose from the sole. And these are really supposed to be high quality boots, but apparently they're not, or I'm just really hard on things. I don't know. But I have my sewing kit. I have my leather needles. I use fishing line to repair them. And I went to start working on them when I realized that this whole section had just torn away from the sole. And so I had no way to fix that. I mean, I'll figure it out. And I was thinking about maybe some kind of Gorilla Glue or something. So I came out here to the shop to get my Gorilla Glue, which was a block of ice. So that just kept happening. I was like, oh, maybe I can work on such and such. And then no. So I read a lot, took a lot of walks just to come out and keep a check on the sheep and everything. And I think it will be better, and hopefully we'll be able to get to this in the coming year, once we get our shop insulated, where it won't be as cold to be out here and work on stuff. That'll help, because I would come out here, but because we had so much snow, we've got a skylight in this roof. We had so much snow on it that it made it really dark, and I was trying to also be conservative with our electrical usage. So I didn't want to come out here and have a bunch of lights on and then think about, am I going to run the generator and run a little heater out here? So I think getting this building insulated is going to be a big push to make it kind of a second, operational space, living space, operational space, because the cabin just it's small. 400 square feet inside, dog, 2 cats, and my wife, and we just get a little bit, it just gets a little cramped, a little emotionally cramped, a little physically cramped sometimes. And I am too high energy. I don't sit well. I'm pretty much up all day moving around until it's time to go to bed. So if I don't have a way to burn off that excess energy, I can probably be a little difficult to be around. You guys have to ask Angel about that. I was able to get out to my gym on the other end of the shop here and get some lightweight moving. I didn't want to run anything real heavy when I had a hard time getting really warm. That's just a recipe for getting hurt. So I just kind of took it easy on that. Did a bunch of push-ups and pull-ups and things and body weight exercises that just kept everything moving, kept some stuff under tension without risking blowing anything out. And of course I didn't get to train jiu-jitsu all week because the gym was closed, because nobody could get out of their neighborhood, including our coach. So that all pretty much started getting back to normal by about Sunday. So that was nice. But it's been a week of sheep babies. So let's see, today is Friday. I think it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday or Wednesday morning. I think it was Tuesday morning. I went out to check on him. Something told me to go ahead and check on him, even though I wasn't dressed yet. So I just pulled on my coat, pulled on my muck boots, and walked out there. And we had a baby lamb. We had our first baby lamb. Number 19. Actually, it was number 10. Number 10 was the first one. She's got a little baby ram. He's adorable. I'm in love. We had problems with these sheep during the summer. We had parasite issues, and we lost some. I think it was 4 or 5, and it was really sad and it was really difficult. I got really tired of dragging dead sheep down into the woods for nature to take care of, and it was hard. And I never once thought about quitting. That wasn't the issue. That's just not how I am. But it was really disheartening. And my sheep lady, who was mentoring me through all this, she said, we just got to ride this out. This is how we build a resilient flock. I know it's tough. I know it's sad. Let's just ride it out. So when this baby showed up, I am not ashamed to say I started crying right then and there. I mean, as much as I do cry, which is like, tearing up essentially. It's about the most that I can muster these days. But for me, that's pretty significant. So I saw that little baby. It hadn't been that long since he had been born. He was still pretty wet. The mama was cleaning him up. And I didn't want to interfere or, kind of get into her space. So I was kind of standing back watching. And Primrose, the guardian donkey, came over, and she's really sensitive. I think she's got really good instincts. She's very gentle. And like, she came behind me and put her big old donkey head on my shoulder and just kind of stood there and was breathing in my ear and, tickling my face with her whiskers while I was watching this little baby. And because this was my first time, even though I've done my reading and everything, I wanted to be sure that everything was cool. So I was like texting Marcy, who was busy, and was like, I'm sorry, I can't talk right now. So I went to my next people in line. So I talked to Gretchen and my friend Aaron and my friend Bruce and all these people who have had sheep. And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm observing. Is everything good? Because it wasn't really nursing a lot. And I wasn't sure what to look for, like what looks normal when a newborn lamb is needing its nourishment. And they all kind of ended up telling me essentially the same thing. But just so you guys know, because it was new to me, so just like humans, ruminants produce colostrum, which is kind of an incredibly nutritionally dense substance that comes in prior to milk production. It's full of stuff that's good for their immune system, caloric content. It's a miracle food. I'm amazed that somebody hasn't like synthesized it and is like selling it as a workout supplement. Who knows? Maybe they do. But when they produce that, the lamb actually doesn't need to take on much of that. It's just like a little bit, like they hit that udder for a little bit, and then you see their little tail shake, and then they stretch and they kind of go off and they bounce around a little bit. And it's just the tiniest amount, but it's, you hear people talk about superfoods. Well, for a lamb, that's superfood. So they just have to have a little bit here and there. And then after a few days, I believe the mother will start producing actual milk, and then you'll see them nurse more. So as long as your lamb is moving and staying with mama, and the mama is not leaving it behind, and you see that tail wagging and all that good stuff, and they when they stand back up, they stretch. Those are all good signs, all healthy lambs. And that's what Marcy was telling me was, all of these ewes are proven. They've all had lambs, and they've never abandoned one or had any issues. Frankly, because if that had happened, that ewe would still not be part of this flock. Like you don't get to hang around if you don't take care of your babies. Because I know there are people who will bottle feed and they'll do all this stuff. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. That's just a personal decision. We are not set up to do that. And even my friend Bruce cautioned me. He said he did that once and he probably would not do it again, because later on that baby was so bonded to him that it wouldn't stay in the fence. and then you have a problem. So it's like you really have to let nature take its course. So I was just hoping that everything was cool, and it turned out everything was cool. And this little guy already looks like he's put on about 3 pounds. He looks great. And then I went out there the next morning, and number 19 has had twins, and she's had twin females, and one's all white, and then the other one has like these kind of light charcoal markings on its front legs and down like the first half of its spine. It's so cool looking. I think it's got it on his little back knee, or her little back knees too. So it's just the best. I was relieved that the sheep did not have these when we were so cold. Although probably everything would have been fine, but it just, for the sake of my stress level, they waited until we were mild, a little rainy, but otherwise mild. They've been hanging out under the cedar trees. They're doing great. The ram is being really good around them. I know some people will not keep their rams in when lambing comes around, but Ramsey's just been fine. I mean, he's just as chill as the day is long, and I've never seen him show any aggression. Like he gets a little ornery around the hay sometimes, but he doesn't drive off the others. He just kind of muscles his way into where he wants to eat. But he doesn't stop anybody else from eating. So, and also Primrose kind of, this was a little bit of an unknown. So, she was brought in as a guardian donkey, and she is a, gosh, I'm not real sure how much she weighs. Probably, I mean, she's probably close to 300 pounds. I mean, she's pretty good size, and we think she's pregnant too. So she's big around right now. And, I mean, gosh, she might even really be over 350. She could be 350. It's hard to tell. I mean, it's not like I put her on a scale, but, she has been so gentle, and there have been people that have said that they would never use a donkey, and maybe it matters male versus female. But they would never use a donkey because that around lambing time, they can get aggressive. And so I was watching these little lambs like bouncing around under her feet, all around her hooves, while they were standing by the hay corral. And Primrose was just looking down at them, just watching them. And then when she was ready to move a foot, she picked it up so slowly and watched so carefully. And as soon as she started to move, they kind of scampered off, and the mamas kind of called them over anyhow. So it was just so cool to see. And on that note with Primrose, I never thought that I'd get attached to a donkey. I was not one of these kids that was like obsessed with livestock growing up. You know how some kids are like really into horses, or they're really into this or that. I really wasn't. I could just kind of like, I mean, I've always liked animals in general, and I've always been a cat and a dog person, and I've got a turtle, and I've had all these, I've always done, or these past several years, we've done different kinds of birds and chickens and turkeys and things. But this donkey and I are like pretty tight now. And I think it's because I think I made it real clear to her when she first came out here that I wanted to earn her trust. Like, I had no interest in trying to boss her around or do anything. I mean, she's a donkey. She's going to do whatever she wants to do. And, she can be convinced to do certain things with a bucket of sweet feed. But I've just made a habit of just going out here, at least twice a day, and more often, when I'm here more, and just getting into the paddock and just hanging out with them and petting her and scratching her. And she comes to me and she puts her head into my shoulder, and she wants like both sides of her neck scratched and under her jaw scratched. And, she just kind of noses at me and watches things real closely. So I didn't see myself developing a close relationship with a donkey, but here we are, and she's just such a sweet creature. She's just she's very soulful. There's something about her, like there's a look in her eye. The place that she came from originally, not Marcy's place, but the place where Marcy found her, was apparently not the best. And I'll have to post up some pictures sometime and show you guys how she looked when she came here and how she looks now. Completely different donkey. And I mean, she's no show donkey by any means. And I do try to get her brushed about once a week, but she likes to waller in the mud and rub against the tree. So she's always dirty, and, you know, she's white. So it doesn't she doesn't stay clean looking, but I really like her personality. And my brother started bringing her different treats to see what she likes, and buying carrots and things. And he and his girlfriend go up there and visit with her and give her stuff. So she's, you know, and mom too. So she's, you know, everybody's working to earn her trust. And we like Primrose a lot. So it was one of those things that I didn't have it on my list for 2023 and 24 to love a donkey, but here we are. Otherwise, so as the snow did its thing and the cold did its thing, if you looked a few weeks back where I had planted my very late fall garden from a bunch of free plants that were given to me, you know, I tucked them all in. Some of them went under little plastic and mesh, little miniature greenhouse tents, and the rest I just piled a whole bunch of leaves on. And as far as I can tell, everything came through it fine. I even looked at the lettuce the other day, which would have been the thing that most likely to get really nuked. But it's fine. It's fine. I mean, I clipped some off. It's good. We're having, you know, small harvests from everything right now, but like the broccoli and the kale and the kohlrabi and the cabbages, I mean, everything just looks fine. I mean, there's a few, you know, leaves that are white at the edges from the cold, but pretty much, I think, just between the leaves and then the snow cover really insulating things, they were, the garden was unimpressed with what happened. So, also, you know, these plants were really big when I put them in. I mean, they were working their way out of the containers trying to root themselves somewhere else. So they were already really well established, which I'm sure made a big difference. And then I've got them in really good quality soil with plenty of mulch. And, we had also had several times of being, you know, well below freezing, like in the 20s and in the teens somewhat. So things were acclimated. That was, but that was nice to see when everything melted off, to see everything just happy and not turning, you know, black and rotten and everything. So yeah, if you guys are looking at doing your fall garden, you know, especially if you, I mean, even if you think you're getting to it too late. I mean, I planted these things in like the middle of December, or yeah, it was after Christmas even. So right there at the first of the year is when I put these plants in the ground. So keep an eye out for them. And if you make buddies with people at nurseries and they're fixing to throw all that stuff away, you know, see if you can buy them all for some kind of flat rate, you know, or even to see if they can, you know, donate them or whatever the case may be. It's totally worth it. I always have trouble when it's time to actually start getting, technically speaking, start putting plants in the ground for the fall. I should have started those seeds in August, and there is no keeping seed trays moist enough around here in August. I don't have the setup for it. So this was a real treat to just, you know, get these plants. So I'm gonna let them do their thing. I'm gonna let them, you know, ride well into the spring and set some seed and gather some seed, because I know they're good plants. I know that they're resilient for this area, and I want seed from all that stuff. So even if a lot of it just ends up becoming, you know, some sheep food and whatnot, works for me. So since the melt has happened and then we've had all this rain, we still ended up having about 2 days this week, which, while overcast and kind of dreary, I was able to get quite a bit of stuff done. I mean, it was like somebody lit a fire under my rear end. Angel said I had full moon energy. So the full moon, I think, was technically last night. And that's what happens is the full moon, which is also in the sign of Cancer, which is my birth sign. And whether or not you guys believe in that, I notice trends and patterns. And you can look at the way I was acting in last week's video versus this week's. I've been GSD around here. So one of the things I had on my radar was to get this little kind of miniature deck back stoop built off the back of the cabin. This has been a sticking point for a little while because we thought we were going to be able to build onto the back and basically build close to another 14 by 32 room that we were going to use for, we were at least going to start as a covered deck framed in, probably just screened at first, and then maybe wall in at least a portion of it, because we wanted to have a insulated space for our fridge and freezer, which currently sit on the other end of this uninsulated shop building. But we just haven't been able to make it happen. We keep having to redirect money to other things. It's not a real big deal. It's not a need. It's more of a want. It's kind of like a nice to have, but we're able to rock and roll the way things are. So because of that, I had not messed too much with anything on this back side of the cabin. But it had started to become kind of a pain in the butt, because while we have a back door there, right beside the back door is this gap, this channel that's cut into otherwise the berm foundation for the back of the cabin. And that's because that's where my plumbing goes under. And so I need to be able to get under there. And it's a good thing that I did not have that covered up, because I spent a good portion of this past week under the house again, reworking plumbing. So I'll come back to the deck thing in a minute. I promise I'll tie all this together. As somebody who helps people plan their properties, sometimes I guess it's all about the learning curve, right? So there's some things that I could have done better. Fortunately, this is not by any means a type 1 giant disastrous error. And I literally fixed it in about 2 hours. So we've got the propane water heater, right? This is an on-demand eco-temp little, it's basically intended for camping, but it's meant to be outside. I've got drain off valves on it, 3 drain off valves on this thing. So I was under the impression that after we used it, I would immediately go, when it's below freezing, I would immediately go outside, open all 3 drain valves, and empty it out so that the exchanger would not crack. It still cracked, probably because, and this was one of those times where it was like 25 degrees. We fired it up and ran it so we could do dishes and showers. And I am going out the door, still wet from my shower with a towel around my waist in 15 degrees, because I don't need the cold plunge when I do stuff like that, to empty the heater. The reason it's outside is because it's not set up to be vented. So it says. So next day rolls around, and I'm out there doing the same thing, getting it ready to roll. There's like one little section of pipe that I still have to run a heat gun on to let the to melt the one spot that doesn't have any heat tape on it, and finally get it all ready to rock and roll. And I realized that it's spraying water everywhere inside the compartment. So I shut everything off, said a bunch of bad words, took the cover off, and up towards the top on the left, sure enough, there's a little 1 centimeter crack in the heat exchanger in one of the pipes. So at that point, it was starting to get dark, and I was done for the day, and I was over it. So that night, I got on Toolman Tim's forum, talked to Sean Mills, talked to some other people, talked to Brian Young. And I was like, and I've watched some videos on YouTube. I'm like, guys, is there any way I can mount this thing inside and vent it safely so I'm not off-gassing carbon monoxide into my home? Because I cannot weatherize it. If we're going to keep having weather like this, this is a huge pain in the rear. And so, I'm going to pause for a minute here and say howdy to Off-Grid Ping. Good evening. Fixing the ignition coil on my chainsaw. That's one thing I've never had to work on. So if I have to, I know who I'm talking to. But yeah, glad you dropped in. We are talking about water heaters. so so I got a lot of good suggestions. But so between some YouTube research and some suggestions on what other people have done in very similar situations, I have mounted the water heater on my southwest wall, which is actually close to the wood stove. And again, with a very thorough smattering of bad language, was able to reroute my PEX plumbing back under the cabin, jump it over a couple of the skids, and get hooked up, come up through the floor. PEX is pretty flexible when it's well above freezing, but this stuff was like wrestling an anaconda or something. I mean, it was a pain in the butt, but we got in there, got everything hooked up. And for now, we are just venting out the window, and we also open the back door. I've got a CO2 detector within 3 feet of it. It has not gone off once. We're being very careful. I put it on the wall, and I've got spacers, and I've got a infrared thermometer, and I have taken readings all over the place. And frankly, for it to cause a fire, like the ambient heat coming off of it is nothing compared to the wood stove. So we're not worried about ambient heat being an issue. If the whole dang unit caught on fire, then yes, we could have a problem. But frankly, it was so close to my house on the outside. If it had caught fire out there, it could have still caused me issues. So that said, and then we just got it in today, a vent. I've got a 6-inch, basically like a bathroom vent. Only it'll plug in because I do have a plug nearby, and that's just going to be way easier than trying to hardwire something in. We're going to cut it into the wall of the cabin, frame it in, put that vent in. We will run that vent whenever the heater is running, and I think we're going to be good to go. I checked my gas fittings. I did the soak test. I did all that stuff, and we also don't leave the gas on. I go out there and I turn it on when we need to use it, and then I turn it back off again just because I'm paranoid. So, hey, Digger, thank you for coming in. If you guys have any questions about anything or anything you want to share, just pipe up with it. I'm just kind of doing a Friday free for all here. I've got my my check off list, but really I'm down for whatever you guys have on your mind. So having the heater inside has been so much easier, and this is one of those things that I wanted to make easier for Angel too, because I'm starting to get into the season where I'm going to be traveling a little bit for consults and stuff. I'm going to be traveling at the 1st of February. So she doesn't have to worry about draining things off, making sure all the water's out, or if it does freeze and I'm not here and, she can't take a shower and crap like that or do dishes. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm gonna put that vent in. I'll probably be able to get to that tomorrow afternoon or Sunday, and I think we're gonna be good to go. This thing just does not have. It's so much smaller than the original one we had. It's the L5, so it's not much bigger than a telephone book. And for those of you who remember what a telephone book looks like, and the BTUs it puts off is not anything super concerning. And like I said, I've seen multiple videos now where they use like a heat registered ductwork and fit it over the top, and then used aluminum tape to seal it off, and then they just vented it through a wall again with an actual powered vent. And so that's all. I think I'm not going to do that part, but I think I will leave room to be able to do so just in case. But like I said, I've been happy with it. I mean, the first few times we ran it, I was really watchful, but I think we're fine. So that was a relief. So all that to say, with the heater removed, hopefully I am done messing around with plumbing under the house. This channel that we created under the house. So this was kind of one of the challenges when we put this cabin up. My brother and I built a pad from old asphalt, big chunks, really big chunks. Some of them, 3-5 feet across. Had somebody come up here and drop old asphalt. Using his skid steer, we stacked it up in a C-shaped, or more like an E-shaped perimeter, and then backfilled with the smaller chunks, and then gravel. It saved us a ton of money on gravel. And then leveled it, packed it down, leveled it several times over. And then when they brought the cabin, they just rolled it off onto that pad. We had looked at different ways of setting up this cabin and talking to the guys who build them and deliver them. And everybody was saying, don't do pillars. I know you want to do pillars, but we have rolled up on so many home sites where they have done pillars and they have been off, and we couldn't put it where it needed to go. So we just went with this pad, but I needed to be able to run my plumbing, and I wanted to be able to run it under the house. So we made this cutout in the back, kind of just off to the side of the back door, that's just wide enough for me to get my shoulders in. And even then it's tough. So I have to wiggle under there to mess with any of the plumbing. So I am hoping with what we did, with what I fixed the other day, re-secure the heat tape in a few places, that getting under the house a whole bunch will not be as necessary, which meant that I was able to add on, and I built this 4x8 deck entirely from leftovers from various jobs and things that I picked up for free. And while it's not fancy, it's way sturdier because my previous solution for covering this trench that was right by the back door was a pallet. It was like a 3 pallet that I had nailed deck boards onto. And I had it like shored up with pavers and stuff, and it was sketchy as all get out. And when I needed to get under the house, I had to just pick it up and flip it over because I had feet down in the channel, like I have 4x4s kind of anchoring it, and it was pretty redneck. So I now have a less redneck, actual framed in, secured to the house, little platform out there, which will serve fine for a while until we can do the addition. Ping here says, I forgot to drain my on-demand hot water heater. I like how in the South we say hot water heater. That's required. I know it's a water heater. It's a hot water heater. And ruin the water control valve. We have another one coming, as I'm not sure I could fix it. I don't know about those valves. I have fixed just about everything on these units, though. And I did actually meant to get to this point. So because I had the crack, I was like, and it was in an easy spot, unlike the one that I last tried to fix. It was right there in the wide open. So I got my blowtorch. I was doing this in the living room because that's safe, right? But it was like 7 degrees out here in the shop. I couldn't feel my hands. So I was very carefully in the living room with Angel standing there with the fire extinguisher nearby. And I got my Aluma weld out. So this stuff is kind of nice. You can pick it up at Harbor Freight. You can probably get it at other places. And so it is just designed. It's actually brazing. It's not welding. Somebody who's all fancy pants had to get on YouTube and tell the whole world about it. But to use this Aluma weld, what you do is you actually need to heat the metal that needs to be repaired. You don't heat the rod. So aluminum melts, or at least this Aluma weld material, which is like 2 different substances blended together, melts at about 730 degrees. So I have my blowtorch going on the spot that was cracked. Let me back up for a second. Clean it first. Don't skip that step. I skipped it the first time on that other unit that's still sitting in my attic that needs to be fixed. Take if you've got like your Dremel tool, take one of the little wire brushes, or even if you just have a hand wire brush, and just rough that up and just get there's like a coating or something. It'll mess up the ability for everything to bond if you don't take that off. So just get that and just get it real darn shiny. And then you'll know you're good to go. Heat your metal. And here's my little infrared thermometer. I use this thing for everything. I use it for compost. I use it for stuff all the time. And when I could see that I was getting up to about 650, 700 degrees, you take the rod. I actually have some right here. So you take your rod, and this is where, if you're really one side dominant like I am, it can be really interesting. But they've got these that are about 18 inches long, and you just draw it across the area you've been heating, the area that's cracked, and you will see it just kind of bubbles off. If you are getting the rod itself too hot, if you're holding that in front of the flame, it just comes off in chunks, and you know you're messing up. It's not working really well. So these are inexpensive. I think maybe this was $10 for all of these. I can't imagine how long it'll take me to go through all of them. I told Dad to think of everything aluminum that he's got cracked, and let's work on fixing it, just so we can get better at it. It has instructions in actually in here in the container. And what's kind of funny is when you read these instructions, it's just like the old boy down the road talking to you. It is written in like this conversational style. It is not written where it's been badly translated from some other language. This is like you're talking to your best buddy down in the garage. It's really cool. So I'm a fan of the AlumaWeld. Saved me $150 of having to buy another, or actually more than that, like $175 of buying another one of these units. And I actually found, I'm sorry I don't have it in the notes for you guys, but if you search AlumaWeld on YouTube, one of the first videos you will probably get is this lady who shows how she used it to repair the same kind of water heater I've got. And it's just a real short, to the point video. And I watched it a couple times, and that's the biggest thing. Heat the metal, not your rod. So you kind of have to be quick. So you kind of hold the heat on the metal, and then, shut it off, turn it away, draw that rod, put it back on there, because it cools super quick too. So that's where the balance is. So I have to admit, I was pretty proud of myself. I'm always still a little bit surprised when I fix something like that, especially when it's my first or second go at something, because a lot of this stuff still just does not come naturally to me. So I have to back it up with like a lot of like research in advance and asking a few questions. And then I figure, well, let's just go for it now. So I'm kind of a fan, which means I'm going to get down this other unit at some point, and try make another go at it. As soon as I figure out how to remove the water weld that I put on there that didn't work. So AlumaWeld, good stuff. You can use it on radiators. You can use it on, they say you can use it on stuff that's load bearing. I would probably exercise a little more caution there, but if you just got aluminum stuff laying around, practice on it. It's probably a good way to, enjoy an afternoon in your garage, seeing if you can kind of sort that stuff out. And you can do it with just a regular old propane blowtorch. We're not talking about any kind of, gas mixtures or wild stuff like that. Oh, let's see what else is on the list. Oh yeah, I have a West Tennessee trip coming up. So I've got a consult scheduled in McKenzie, Tennessee, which is a little bit northwest of Camden. So we're talking, we're a couple hours west of Nashville. So I'm going to do a consult out there for a suburban design. And then I'm going to go over to special operations equipment and do some preparation for the foraging class that'll be happening as part of the Self-Reliance Festival. I think we're going to do it like the day before the actual festival, do some prep work for that. I'm going to swing through and see Brian and Corey of the Lots Project and probably get at least a couple of hours out on Delinquents Gully, Tim's land. And so that's, early February, we can actually start seeing anything that's not anything, but a lot of things that come up from bulbs plant-wise could be cropping up. There are a few kind of like tender wildflowers that could be starting to come up, especially if we stayed a little bit warm. I'll be able to get a good look at certain trees that are beginning to bud out, because I'm trying to get better at identifying trees from their bud structure, not just leaf and bark. Because I'm trying to get this to where I can do this year round. So if you guys are on the route from Knoxville to west, or I should say middle-ish West Tennessee, at this point, it's already kind of looking like I'm going to be gone about 3 days. So if you're not way far off, I'd be happy to swing through. If you're looking for consult work or a visit, or if you've got a cool nursery, I want to know about it. I would like to know about, I'm always looking for plants, especially stuff that's native adapted. So if you've got a cool nursery stop, aquaponics stuff, you guys know what I'm into, permaculture stuff, homestead stuff, all of that. I'm going to try to fit in, a couple more stops and try to just obviously make it worth not just one job driving that far. Yeah, man, just shoot me an email or hit me on Telegram or wherever, because I can kind of give you what my schedule's looking like. My consult is on, pardon me while I look at my schedule here. My consult in February is on February 1st. So that's a Thursday. So I'm looking at being over at Delinquents Gully on Friday the 2nd. But if my stuff at SOE goes a little bit long, I may push that over to Saturday. I'm still kind of playing that out. I kind of got to see, I got to make sure I got stuff squared away here at home first and all that. So, just Telegram or strongrootsresources@gmail.com. I'd be happy to. That's my thing, studying the land, learning the land, teaching others about it. That's apparently my calling, among other things. So, the last thing. So, or a couple more things, really. I did since we warmed up again, I've been back out in the shop on, I guess it was yesterday. It was really rainy, so there wasn't a whole lot I could do outside between just checking on the animals. So I got the my side of the shop a little more streamlined, reorganized my library, moved my stereo over. I'm old school, so I have one of these like stacked up stereos with vinyl and all that kind of good stuff, and the I don't know what it's called, the thing where you can just choose your different channels and mess with your settings and stuff, that I actually got out of a dumpster, one of my better dumpster finds. Move that stuff over. I actually cleared up a big, this was previously intended to hold like what would have been a large screen TV at the time, a big hutch. And what actually I'm going to be able to use it for is when I'm working on my maps and my diagrams, I've got a little more room to spread out because my desk is small and it's mostly taken up by computers. So I'll be able to draw over there, and then I can walk over here and I can look at a map, and then I can take 3 steps and draw some more. So got that cleaned out. And then most importantly, I got my grow shelf back in here. I had that stowed up. Well, originally we were going to try to do it in the house, and then the water heater took over that particular spot. So I've got that set back up. So when we're mild again, we could get some seeds started. So that was nice. It was nice that it was warm enough that I could putter out here and just get a few things tied together. I got the Jeep cleaned out. I had a bunch of tools all over the place, stuff that had just been dug out real quick and then just tossed back. And I operate better when I have things relatively organized. So that was nice. So coming up this week, I've got another day scheduled on my continuing food forest rehab job down the road here. If we can get enough, if we can get a dry enough day, because there's going to be quite a bit of digging, and I don't want to create compaction, so I need to kind of be careful about that. And I've got at least one day scheduled for that, and the rest of my week is it's kind of up in the air with the weather. So we'll just kind of see. I got a fella coming up tomorrow who wants some sassafras trees, so I'm going to hook him up with those. I have them by the dozens here. They come up in groves, and they are in areas that I am converting into kind of a silvopasture project, but they're so dense I don't need as many in the spot that they're in, so I am selling some of them or trading them for things. And we've got it's kind of funny, but I mean, I'm not saying it's funny, but people love these trees, and there's some people that just mow them down and hate them, but I think they're excellent trees. Every part of them has a use. They have, obviously that's where you know, the root is how you originally make root beer. So I got a fella coming up here to have some of these trees, but he also runs a nursery in Athens, Tennessee. So we're going to talk about, and he's kind of a plant nerd like me, so we're going to talk more about you know, if there's some partnerships that work for us where if he can help me source things for some of my food forest design and some of these homestead properties, because I am constantly on the look for Southeast specific, especially, you know, Tennessee River Valley, Mississippi River Valley plantings. So a lot of the kind of bigger mail order, you know, they sell a lot of stuff that's like zone 8, zone 9, and we need stuff that's 6 to 7 because of the way our winters keep getting weirder and weirder and weirder. So I'm looking forward to talking to him. He seems like a really interesting guy. I just put this up on Facebook Marketplace, and he messaged me and was just actually like a conversationalist. It wasn't just like, I want tree, I offer you $5, which is normally the game on Facebook Marketplace. So we're going to do that. And otherwise, you know, there's just a little bit of playing it by ear coming up. Howdy, Andy Eddings. There's talking about plant tree nerds. There's another one right there. So yeah, Andy, if you didn't catch it, I'm talking to a guy tomorrow. He's going to come up here to the farm, and it's called Shale Creek Nursery. Let me throw that in the notes. I guess I could do that. It looks like he's got a Facebook page, but he's got some interesting stuff. So we've been kind of talking back and forth, and he's actually bringing me a couple of pawpaws that he has been working on, making them more adaptable to open pasture land, which of course is mostly what I have out here. So we're going to plug those into the food forest and see how they do. Yeah, I definitely, I'm on board with that. Tree nerd, plant nerd, I'm good with it. I don't really care what people think. I think they're interesting. I've collected so many seeds from these trees around here. I saw a guy on Facebook. He wasn't too local to me, so it didn't really make sense to try to hook him up with locust trees, but he was looking for black locust because he wants to grow his own fence post, and he wants to do the fodder and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I collect locust seeds all the time because, I mean, they grow so straight. They're so useful. They're easy to harvest for posts. The flowers when they bloom are freaking delicious. I mean, it's just, you know, I think I used to hear this a lot. I should say used to. I hear it all the time. Oh, those are trash trees about anything. And I think probably the only tree that I legitimately strongly dislike, because I don't like to use the word hate, but I really dislike the Bradford pear, and then the offshoot of that, the Callery pear, just because there's nothing quite like the pain of stepping on a pear thorn or getting caught up in it. And as I'm working on clearing these off my land, I've got right before the snow came, I cut a whole bunch back, the ones that are, you know, 3-4 feet tall and just like all spines. And I had cut and dug a bunch of them out, and I've got them piled down here in this kind of lower field to just I'm gonna run them through the chipper. I don't even want to deal with burning them. I'm just gonna poke them down in the chipper with I've got a jacket that I wear just when I'm dealing with those because it's like a puncture resistant uh, firefighter jacket. So longevity spinach. If that was on Jack's permaculture podcast recently, the something basics permaculture, I still need to listen to that. But yeah, it sounds like that's going to be one of those. I'm actually waiting to listen to it until I know I can take notes because I know it's going to be one of those. So that's cool. One of my things this coming up in this for the food forest next. So I've kind of got my overstory good to go. I mean, there's a few more things I could add, but the overstory is pretty much there. And my mid-level, my shrub level is doing pretty good too. And so what I'm looking at next is more vines. So I want to do the Malabar for sure, spinach, and then the kind of the ground cover and that sort of that in-between layer things that you can plant directly under the trees. So that's what's going to be that's what I'm going to have my eyes out for, is that middle realm. So we've still got the talking about beams. I'm not really sure how people how exactly this works, but there is something about locust that when it dries, for those of you guys who don't know, when black locust dries, you know how like most wood will start to you can see the splits, and when you're going to split it, especially if you're doing it by hand, you can see like, oh, that's where I need to hit it with the maul. Locust just like seals its stuff up. It's so dense, and frankly, if you let it dry and then you go to cut it, a lot of times, like my chainsaw just doesn't want to cut it. It doesn't matter if I've got a brand new sharpened chain or anything. It is so dense. So, Andy, my great grandfather planted locusts out here in the 30s and 40s because he knew the value of it. And so we've got them everywhere. There are a bunch behind mom and dad's house right now that are like perfect for fence posts. And then there's larger ones that my brother harvests, and those are set up in the hops yard as the post for running the wire to train the hops. And it's like 20 or 25 feet. So, because we just put them in the ground with some gravel, and they're good. I mean, they're good forever. There's still fence posts in the ground through here where most of the fence is actually gone, but you'll find fence posts that are locusts. So yeah, I love the stuff. I think it's an incredibly giving tree. So I have an affinity. I have an affinity for most trees. I'm seeing where people are starting to tap stuff. We are kind of getting into tree tapping weather. Andy, I would be interested to know what you think about tapping black walnut and how big they need to be in order for me to do that, because I've got 3 not too far away that are probably, I don't know, maybe a 10-inch diameter or so. I'd be interested to see what would be involved in that, if there's such a thing as a tree too young. We've got some red maples around here. And I know you've done hickory. I don't know if we've got any hickory up here or not. I don't think we do. So, it's just trees are amazing. I mean, I love planting them. I love everything that they bring into a landscape. I don't see any need to, like I was talking to a guy not too long ago, and he was talking about trying to clear cut a hillside to create pasture. And of course, I don't want to tell people what they're doing is wrong, but I try to introduce the thought that maybe there's more than one way to do things. And I sent him like some really good primer information on silvopasture and how you can use selective harvest and still have other things that ruminants can eat. So, they can eat more than just grass. I mean, these sheep are ripping wintergreen ivy off of trees as we speak. And when I take the pole saw and cut it down for them, they just are extra happy and they just chow it down off the ground. So, yeah, I just saw that there's probably a post or something somewhere where people were tapping walnuts. Like you can tap any deciduous tree for syrup. It's just that maple has the highest sugar content and the lowest water content, so that you do not have to boil it as long. You still have to boil it a really long time. So it's more about like your time and the flavor and everything, but all sap you can turn into some kind of syrup. It's just that your return on investment is going to vary. But I kind of feel like if you've got an outside fire and you've got a vessel and you've got the trees and you've got nothing else to do, or maybe if you've got somebody who can kind of mind the fire, which that's the kind of thing Angel likes to do, then, you know, I think it's kind of one of those cool sort of traditional ancestral skills that we ought to make a go at. And you can even make your own spiles. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But the thing that you insert into the tree, that's pretty easy DIY. So yeah, look that up. It's even if you don't even really want to boil it down all that much, you could see like, you know, what the sap tastes like. So I'm talking very basic principles here. I have not done a deep dive on this in a long time, so I would need to go back and review. But in a minute, I'll show you the book that I'm pretty sure shows you the basics of this. But when people talk about the sap run, that is when the trees start creating the sap. They do that when the weather is, generally speaking, below freezing at night, but above freezing during the day. So it can be kind of a weird window, especially here on our end of the state. So I am pretty sure, if you guys don't mind me scooting over here to my library real quick, that I think it's this book. If you don't have this book, this is like a Reader's Digest book. Get this dang book. It's like $3 on thrift books or eBay or whatever. I'm pretty sure that's the one. It has kind of like a lot of sort of, you could say, I guess, pioneer era skills. I love that book. It's like a real feel good, especially wintertime read. So, yeah, I guess I'll add that to the to-do list since I've sat here and talked to you guys about it. Andy has done the shagbark hickory syrup is not tapped. It's actually a sweetened and condensed tea made from steeping the bark. All right, I'm glad you clarified that. I did not know that. That's super cool. So is this something where was this a tree that was taken down, or do you remove some of the bark while the tree is alive? Like, I'd be interested to know how that works, because obviously we don't, you know, yeah, are we wounding a tree? Like how that kind of sorts out? And if you've got time to clarify any of that'd be groovy. The one other thing I'm gonna get off trees here for a minute, and one other thing that I might rant a little bit here since we're hanging, and it's on my mind is I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but if you guys are new and or if you haven't been up here before, our farm shagbark hickory will strip off of a live tree. Oh, I know what you're talking about now. Okay, I'm visualizing. Yeah. Nice. Hey, that's cool. I'm sure you noticed there's a bunch of shagbark out at Special Operations Equipment. That's thank you for that. I'm going to add that into my my stuff for John, for the stuff I'm working on for his document. And that is good to know. Excellent. I actually pocketed some shagbark hickory nuts. I don't know how viable they were, but I stuck a bunch in my pocket when I was out there, because I would love to have those trees out here too. Even, you know, I'll probably be long gone by the time they're mature, but you got to start somewhere. But yeah, the other thing that just kind of popped up, we get solicited for people wanting to buy this land all the time. So uh, when this land was purchased by my great grandfather in the 30s, it was, there were probably more cows than people in this community. This was a farming community, it was a rural community. And as it happens, suburbia has arrived. And I was ranting and raving about this in my journal in fifth grade. I remember writing this. It kills me to see farms being paved over, and it's happening all the time, and everybody's complaining about it. Even the people who are living in a subdivision that used to be on farmland. So, and where we are at, I don't really care to know what the market price would be for the property, because it doesn't matter to me, because it would be, frankly, I don't think there's enough money in the world to pay for the therapy that I would need if this land went away, if it was no longer in our family. So I get solicitations to my phone all the time, which is weird, because this is all still in Dad's name. Like, none of this is in my name. Like, this is part of my inheritance, part of my, me and my siblings' inheritance, but none of it is actually, for all intents and purposes, we rent from Dad. That's how we've got this set up. That's how we've got it set up for the business and for us personally. But we get solicitations I get one at least once a week, but I got one earlier today that said they were, and I know these are like generic. I know this is not specifically targeted at me, but I have a little bit of trouble not taking it personally. And sometimes they get really aggressive. Normally I just ignore them, or I just text back like stop, so they'll take me off of the mailing list, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. But they said that they were interested in paying a premium for vacant land. And it was the vacant part that frankly really pissed me off. And I'm sure you guys that are watching this can relate to this. Developers just see how many units they can squeeze onto a parcel, how many they can, whoever they can pay off on the commission to make it happen, whichever wheels they have to grease. They want to know how many units they can get, and they base their price off of that. So they see vacancy. So they see what kind of slapdash structures they can throw up for rent around here is crazy. $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 for a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Not even all that many amenities. I mean, it's just crazy. But this land is not vacant. It is alive, and it is being improved through a design science that has roots in tons and tons and tons of ancestral knowledge, of which I am still only barely scratching the surface. I mean, the more I learn about permaculture, the more I know I don't know. And that's why I don't like being called an expert, because it's like, no, I am still learning. The point is that I feel like I can help you learn and go along with this as well. That's where I distinguish things. But it's just, it's just wild that they call it vacant. And, because I walk these fields almost every day. I mean, I cover not all of the 10 acres, but a good portion of it, at least a few times a week. And of course, I've got certain areas that get visited more than others for, because I'm checking on the sheep or whatever, or we're walking the dog. But, just in the few minutes, I'm watching all this bird activity. I'm watching the deer cruise through. I'm watching the wild turkeys cruise through. I'm watching hawks catching rabbits and the owls. I mean, if I was quiet right now, I'd be able to hear the owls that are down here in this dead locust tree calling back and forth. We have people come up here, and we're able to show them how to do a different kind of lifestyle. I have people up here to show them how to understand why a tree is where it is and what it means, and why the land is contoured this way and what that means for a heavy rainfall, and how it's good here, but it needs to be improved over there. And, I think about the fact that I'm the fifth generation of my family to be here. So, sometimes when people come up here, because in a way we're sort of hidden away. It's sort of funny, the driveway comes off of what is now a 4-lane state highway. I mean, it was always a state highway, but now it's 4 lanes and everybody drives 70 miles an hour down it. And it's real easy to miss. And so when we have people come up here and I give them directions and they get up to the top of the hill and they're like, wow, we had no idea this was back here. And we kind of laugh and say, yeah, that's kind of the way we like it. We like to be a little bit off the radar, even though really we're not. And, all you need is Google Earth and you can see everything. But I guess I'm just wishing that more people could see the potential of something that has nothing to do with putting as much occupancy on it as possible. And I'm not ignorant to the fact that, yeah, I know people need a place to live, but you know what? There's a lot of actual like vacant property, and not just land, but buildings that are vacant. And it's bizarre how we can continue to build plenty of buildings to store people's stuff, but not for people to live in and have their homes in. So yeah, Andy, vacant of their subdivision. And as long as my ass is alive, it will be vacant of their subdivision. Now, I might not be able to do too much once I'm gone. That's something that we haven't really discussed in great depth yet. That is a conversation that probably needs to happen between me and at least my brother. But while I'm around, I shall continue to have more animals here than other humans. And if that makes me a little bit curmudgeonly, then so be it, because we have watched the wildlife around here become more dense on our own property because they're running out of places to go. So, I mean, we just saw we call him one antler. We've got a one antlered young buck that cruises through. He follows the same path around the same time every day, and we see him. And we've got fox and the coyotes and all these animals because, they've lost their habitat, and because I have a fairly, I can't say it's all that dense, but I've got a zone 5 that they can chill in, that they can do their thing. They can hunt and they can do their, live out their animal life, because I don't see things in how much money I can make off of this. And don't get me wrong, I need to make money on this land. I need to be able to support myself and my family and take care of business, but I'm going to do that in a way that's not exploitive. So that's my grumpy of the day. Probably won't be the last time it'll come up, but just something to think about, that word vacancy and how that can be perceived in a multitude of ways. So I think I'm probably going to wrap it up there, guys. I appreciate y'all coming in and hanging out, taking the time to do that. That's just always nice to bounce ideas off of you guys. Please holler at me anytime. If there's anything I can help you with, you guys know where to find me at strongrootsresources@gmail.com. And hope to catch up with you guys soon at some of these festivals coming up. Spring's going to be here before you know it. I mean, we're already getting the fever right now since the weather improved. And yeah, before you know, we're going to be hanging out, swapping stories around the campfire, planning GSDs and doing all kinds of cool stuff. And so I'm looking forward to when we can all get together again. And I'll talk to you guys next week.